All right, good morning, people. Welcome to the morning drive. I'm Thomas Curtis. Thank you so much for bringing me with you on your morning drive. Today's episode 8 on July 27th. We've got a ton to talk about because I didn't do an episode yesterday morning, and because I decided not to do that on in Saturday evening, I was like, we'll push it to Monday. I've got the day off. I'll take Sunday off. And we got a Connelly Early trade, and we've got the Red Sox uh, taking another series. We've got some Patriots talk on this episode. I know a lot of people I've talked to about this podcast in person have been waiting for this for the Patriots kind of discussion. And as we get into the fall, I mean, it's going to be all Pats from there with ideally some Red Sox talk in the fall if they're still in it. And how could you say they're not at this point? We'll dive into that a little bit. But yeah, thank you for listening in to the morning drive. We now have some presenters. We're presented by Skolfield Sports Performance, everything you need to get to the next level, and the Reed Allen Foundation here in Gorham. More on those later in the episode, and as we get going with those two presenters, we'll have some reads for them, but they will be with us for the foreseeable future. We will get right into the news. A couple big pieces of news. Of course, the Hall of Fame class was inducted. It was Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, and Jeff Kent. They're all inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame. Teams wore the special hats this weekend, which I thought was interesting. Um, the Sox ones were bad. We were talking about that yesterday, watching the game with family. It looked like an 8, kind of. Not a great hat, but something different for the Hall of Fame inductions. But the big one, the Patriots topic that we'll get into, second round pick, the 55th overall pick in last spring's draft, Gabe Jacas, signs a 4-year, $8.5 million deal with New England. He finally gets on board as training camp has started. Clearly, the hangup is a knee injury for Jacas, which was a concern during the draft, and I didn't really expect it to hang up until almost August for the second round rookie, but it does. The Patriots get it done. He's placed on the PUP because of that injury. The contract has a injury void that notes that knee. So kind of concerning. I'm glad he's on the roster, but edge is sort of the Patriots' weakest spot, and they took him in the second round to fill that need a little bit. And he was a monster in the games he played for Illinois, but when he doesn't sign till August, there's room for concern. Of course, Caleb Lomus looked good. He was the first rounder. So if he pans out, you can kind of punt on the second rounder, but you really want Akis to be a guy. And I think Vrabel's been a guy that gets the most out of the D line. Kayvon Chason is a guy that came in last season and had a career year here with the Patriots. Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, Kairos Tonga even on the inside. Those are some inside guys, but Chason's a guy on the outside that Vrabel and Terrell Williams and the rest of the defensive staff kind of got to play at their highest level. So if Akis is healthy and he can play in NFL games, I think he's going to be good. He's got the talent, and we've got the defensive infrastructure, to make him a good football player. Ideally, that knee holds on, especially for 4 years, $8.5 million. It's a lot of money for a second round pick. So the Pats finally sign him. Next up, the big trade of the weekend was the Red Sox dealing Connelly Early, kind of a fan favorite, Peyton Tolby's best friend. Yikes, yikes. To Washington for Curtis Mead, a guy that, is extremely breaking out. So the price on Curtis Mead was a DFA last offseason, but with 17 homers, we'll talk about the adjustments he's made here in a little bit. He's become worth Connelly Early. I have said to multiple people I don't love dealing innings at this point in the season, with Tolley kind of clearly running out of gas every time he gets past the fifth inning. Jake Bennett's never pitched this many major league innings. Of course, there's injury concerns. Ranger Suarez, fresh off the IL, yesterday looked great. But a guy that was on the IL, no Crochet. Sonny Gray got knocked around the other day, and even I was like, he's got to be injured. He's serving 87 mile an hour, uh, like the sweeper up right in the middle of the plate, and he was getting hammered. So there's some injury concern there. Don't love trading the pitching, but you've got guys, and I think we talked about that last episode when we were talking about who's on the IL and who's coming back. Um, so you've got to trade from a position of strength. We'll get into the deal here in a couple minutes. Um, yeah, so that's where we're at. Pat's camp has begun. They're 2 days in. Drake May and AJ Brown have yet to connect, which they said on the CLNS show for the Patriots beat. Kind of concerning a little bit. May's accuracy a little off to start camp. Obviously, that's his best trait, so you're not too worried about that. Keyshawn Booty, the star of camp, down in Foxborough, a guy that was on the trade block, and then they took him off the trade block, and obviously May's going to find him because he's one of the most reliable receivers on this team. It was just where does he fit with the two acquisitions of Dobbs and AJ Brown. So far, he's looked good. We'll keep monitoring that as we get into the preseason. And on the Patriots text line, if you've got Patriots thoughts, hit me, and I will talk about those. That's leaving a comment. That's leaving, um, you text me, email me, you see me on Twitter. The Patriots text line is where we'll open the show talking about kind of a Pats topic. I don't know if it'll be an everyday thing, but for today, we've got the Patriots should look outside the organization for an RB3. Jam Miller and Lan Larison are the only two in-house options. Antonio Gibson, obviously off that 2-year deal towards ACL last season. Um, the texter, my little brother Tucker, who, if anybody knows, is almost ahead of me football wise. At this point, I've kind of delegated my nitty gritty football knowledge to him. Wants an Antonio Gibson esque kind of guy in that RB3 role to spell Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. He's two names he brought up are Jerome Ford and James Conner. I agree with James Conner. I think that Cardinals running back room is full with Jeremiah Love. They brought in Algier, and they've got Trey Benson. So where does James Conner play into that? And the oldest out of those three guys. Yeah, I think the Patriots do need an RB3. I thought Gibson was a great guy to have. That really kept those guys, those top two guys, healthy. Not just healthy, but like rested, right? So I don't think Jam Miller, a seventh rounder in this year's draft, or Lan Larison, who was a UDFA a year ago, are two guys that can really do that. You want someone that has experience carrying the ball, and I think that's a good point Tucker makes, and we'll monitor that as we get closer and closer to the regular season. I think they do make a move for a running back. Speaking of making moves, the Red Sox and the Nationals come to an agreement on late Saturday night. It was about 11:15, I want to say. The Red Sox deal Connelly Early to Washington for Curtis Mead, as we just talked about in the news. Clearly, it's not about, and Breslow said this, it's not about winning every single trade. I think you've got to look at the roster and be like, everybody said it for months. They need another right-handed bat. Here it is. One of the best right-handed bats in the MLB power-wise. He's slugging 500, just to get that out of the way. But he's like one of 5 or 6 players with 17 right-handed batters with 17 home runs this season, and his swing path is built perfectly for Fenway. Early, I really liked Connelly Early. He starts a game in the wild card last season, and I thought he was going to be a guy in this rotation for a long, long time. But Jake Bennett's emergence, the way the staff has pitched this season, Sandoval looking pretty good every 5 days, has been big for the development of this staff. And Early just didn't have an outlier trait to hang his hat on, right? Um, he's a great pitcher, excuse me. But like I said, doesn't have the outlier that Tolley does. He doesn't have that crazy velo. He doesn't have the crazy control or ground ball rate that Jake Bennett does. So when you don't have that 70 grade trait in a loaded pitching staff like you have in Boston, you become a little expendable. And it was a 147 homer per nine for Connelly Early. A little worrying. I feel like you could pencil Connelly Early in for two jacks every time he threw, which isn't necessarily bad. It was a problem when the Red Sox offense couldn't score more than 2 runs in a night, but I I think that's fixable. I think he controls the changeup a little more. If he's not serving the sweeper up as much, he will. Like the sweeper's a great pitch, but when it hangs, it really hangs. It doesn't spin and it kind of just lives in the middle of the zone the entire pitch, and that's what was getting hit hard. I think in the Nats park maybe when he doesn't have that wall in left field for righties to just really set their sights on, he becomes a better pitcher. And listen, the Nationals needed pitching. They've got the most runs scored this season, but they also have the most runs allowed. So picking up a Connelly Early, a guy that a lot of scouts are really high on, is a good deal for them. And it kind of seems like people in baseball are more leaning towards Washington winning this trade. But like I just said, it's not about winning trades. Early, it's a 4.62 xFIP, 4.62 FIP, 4.14 xFIP, a 3.44 ERA. So pitching above his means a little bit. About a strikeout an inning at 9.1 strikeouts per nine, 3.3 walks per nine. I did feel like he had some walk problems, and as well as he pitched from the stretch with runners on base, he was still, you know, exposing himself to damage situations more than I'd prefer. And a 79 adjusted ERA, which is, better than 20% of the league, I think is how you look at that stat. Um, so the Sox have a rotation, and now they've got a right-handed bat. We'll get into the Curtis Mead, which I'm excited for. I think when I first saw the Connelly Early notification, I was like, "Ooh, for Curtis Mead," because you're thinking C.J. Abrams. You were thinking I wasn't thinking Zach Neto, but some were. So these are bigger names, but Curtis Mead is still a really good player. He's broken out this season, which has made his value Connelly Early, because in 242 career games between 2023 and 2025 with Tampa Bay and Chicago, it was a 5.7 walk percentage, a 23% K rate, and a 286 xWOBA. In the 86 games this season, it's a 12% walk rate, 19% K rate, so he cut that by 4, doubled his walk rate, and it's a 351 expected weighted on base average. His 90th percentile exit velocity improved from 103 to 105, which at 25 years old, a two tick EV jump is something to note. And the classic slash lines 254, 352, and an 852 OPS with a 133 OPS plus. 17 homers. Curtis Mead's going to be a perfect bat. I think you get past the 2-3-4 of Seti, Willier, and Contreras, and I said it in the Rays series. That's a really good top three. But then you get to Durbin, and you wish there was a little more power. You can't bank on Romy hitting a homer a couple times a week. I think with Curtis Mead, you're looking at a homer a week from here on out. Maybe they come in bunches. Maybe it is as consistent as a homer a week. But Curtis Mead, 16 of his 17 homers are to left center. You know what's in left center? This big ass 37-foot green wall that righties love peppering. Rafael Devers like peppering it. Roman Anthony likes peppering it. The best Red Sox hitters use that wall. Poppy used it phenomenally. It's the reason he's the best Red Sox hitter of the generation. If this right-handed bat that's got a 23% air pull rate can figure out how to hit line drives at that wall with guys like Willier and guys like Contreras on base, and Sadon and Maybe it's Siegler hitting first. Maybe it's Yoshida hitting first. I'm not really sure. But these guys are getting on base. Curtis Mead's either putting up 2 or 3 run jacks or 2 RBI games a couple times a week. You were missing that. You know who didn't do that for you was Connelly Early. Sure, he plays a different position, but I think Mead is going to be a really, really impact bat for Boston, and that's what we were begging for. It's what we begged for all season. We knew they got Contreras to replace the Bregman production, but going into the offseason, you thought, wow, if we could get Bregman and a power bat. Contreras and Mead aren't the biggest names, but it kind of does what you're asking. What you were asking going into the offseason, and now Breslow's kind of figured it out. I think also the importance of a week before the deadline to kind of see what Mead has. He'll be in Sacramento tonight to start in this 4-game set with the A's. To see this team for a week and be like, all right, what's this lineup look like? And then as you get towards the deadline, kind of see, you know, we still need a controllable pitcher. Or I wouldn't even say controllable. If it's a rental, but he eats innings, he can go out and give you 5 or 6 innings every 5 days without giving up 5 or 6 runs, like maybe Eduardo Rivera opening for Bayo. You still need that. I think you already know that before this 1 week stretch, but do you also need another bet? Is kind of what this week is going to show you. Whatever, how many 10? No, it's a week because the deadline is August 3rd. Breslow says the contact skills and plate different discipline have always been there. It's the swing decisions he's making, and his stance has really been the thing that catapults him into this run. His hands are lower. His stance is straighter up. It's kind of Bellinger-ish, but the bat, instead of being over his back, is tilted straight up in the air. Have, you know, made these changes to the air pull rate and the K percentage because he's getting 2 balls. I don't know what the BABIP is. I wish I kind of had that, but I didn't look at it. I think this is not a slam dunk, but it is the correct move. You had to trade controllable pitching. We talked that Early was expendable. And Mead, I didn't realize was really on the table, but I think is going to be an impact bat in Fenway for at least a couple more seasons. He hits ARB after 2027, so after the lockout year, but you'll still control him for a little while longer. And I want to talk about him positionally. At second base is where he'll play, at least start for, is what Breslow said. Thank God we're not taking Durbin off third base. He's the best defensive third baseman in baseball, or one of, if he's not. When I first see this Curtis Mead deal, I'm like, ooh, he plays third. Durbin could play second. Just said he would take grounders elsewhere. Thank God they make the right move. Mead will be average to, a point below average at second base is kind of what I'm expecting. Siegler wasn't great. Meyer was always pretty good at second base, but wasn't giving you 30 home run potential clearly. So I think I'm gonna do the defensive trade, and obviously I don't think his range is great. So we'll see how it plays out. I think it'll still be fine. I don't think we're gonna be worried about the right side of the infield for Mead. And then Durbin gets to stay at third. And finally, Romy Gonzalez just lost a lot of PT because Mead's in there against both righties and lefties. You kind of have demoted Gonzalez to a first base spell Contreras and platoon DH is kind of what it looks like for Romy, which makes me feel a little bad. And also the Sung-Shae Chang move is what gets Mead onto this roster. You miss him from the streak aspect of it, but I'm not going to miss Sung-Shae Chang in the lineup or anything. I thought he was a good situational hitter, and he did his job, and I really do thank him for it, but with the postseason in your sight, Sung-Shae Chang isn't a part of that equation. So there is the Curtis Mead and Connelly Early discussion. Now we'll move on to the Sox sixth straight series win after they beat the Blue Jays 6-1. They lost on Saturday to Dylan Cease in his perfect game kind of stuff. It was a one hit complete game for Dylan Cease. Um, I won't talk much about that game because there wasn't much to talk about. Gray got shelled there in the third inning, and that was it. That was that, essentially. Um, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to turn that off. Excuse me. I don't know. I got distracted there for a little bit, for a second. But yeah, the Red Sox win their sixth straight series. Shout out to Ranger Suarez for a really good start off the IL. I know it was basically a week late, 5 days late for Suarez. We thought he'd go Tuesday during the win streak, but it needs a couple days off. And you know what? If we can get a performance like we did yesterday, 4 innings, 4 hits, 6 Ks. The sinker velo was down about a tick, but everything else looked good. And I thought the sinker was still moving really well. So it didn't quite matter on the velo. Maybe something to monitor just a little, but not really worried about Ranger Suarez. Welcome back to the bump. Uh, Another important series win. This was a chance to kind of bury the Blue Jays before the trade deadline, and 2 out of 3 almost does it. I think a full sweep would have had them quitting. A little bit of life for them. But the Red Sox, 54-50, stay in third place. They're up to 1.5 games above Cleveland because Cleveland got swept by Tampa Bay. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. They're firmly in position to be a playoff team. Into the game on Sunday, Andrew Monasterio with another double. He now has one more double than he does singles this season. He was 1 for 3 with that double, a walk, and 2 runs scored. On that double in the third inning, I had it up and now I don't. Narvaez drops down a bunt. He dropped down a pair of beautiful bunts to keep the line moving. And Narvaez batting 198. I was kind of thinking about catcher situations, trying to upgrade our hitting at catcher. But if he's going to hit ninth and if there's a base runner on, drop a bunt down and turn the lineup over to the top of the lineup, I can't complain. He's the best bunter on the team. They've showed a willingness to bunt. Narvaez with his defense, if that's his role, I'm excited about it. Yoshida can't knock Monasterio in, but Cedon comes up. He tries the right field line once, and it's foul by a couple feet. The next pitch, he goes right back to it. The RBI single into right field for Cedon Rafaela. A couple innings later, Jarren Duran, who's 3 for 4, gets a 2 RBI knock. Just, keeps that swing level, lofts a nice line drive into right center. It was a 1-0 count. I think once he does get ahead in counts, I feel like he handles himself much better. But as soon as he goes down 0-1 or gets to 2 strikes, it's not a competitive at bat for Duran. But the 2-run single makes it 3-0. Jahmai Jones pinch hits for Yoshida once Toronto goes to their lefty, Brendan Little, in the pen. Toronto's bullpen's really bad. A bunch of NPCs out there. And Jahmai Jones makes him pay for not having a good lefty because he ropes a double to, it was to the right of the monster, drops it off the wall, scores Duran again, who had a single earlier in the inning. 5-0 Boston, and then Willier takes Little off the wall, off the green in left field. He was in a little bit of a skid. I think it was an 0 for 19, they said, on NESN. Breaks that with a double, goes the other way, and scores a run. That's kind of what gets Willier going. I could see Willier having an enormous midweek here as we approach the deadline in Sacramento, a Little League park. Willier could have a huge series. On the pitching side, we mentioned Suarez, 4 innings, 6 Ks, shutty. Weiser picks up the win for a clean inning. after Suarez leaves in the fifth. Tyrone Guerrero got out of a kind of difficult situation. Pitched, it wasn't leverage, but it was, guys on base, and he had to make the right pitch. He gave up a walk and then a single to get to first and third. And it didn't really look like it mattered to him because he spots a pitch to Kirk, I want to say, Alejandro Kirk, and induces the fly ball to right field. Willier catches it, and we're off to the next inning. Slayton looked filthy. The next inning, he went an inning scoreless on 12 pitches. Four really great sinkers. The sinker was moving for him, and it was sitting like 98, 97, 98, if I'm not mistaken. And then Ryan Watson, 2 innings, eats those up. Chapman and Whitlock get the day off on the getaway day, and Watson gives up 1 run, but who really cares at 6-1? He continues. When you start to understand Ryan Watson, I think you get a better feel for why he's still in the bullpen. Because although he makes it look a little difficult, the leverage of his situations are never. I feel like he hasn't pitched a big game in months. And so when he's there just to throw 35 pitches and spell a couple guys in the late innings because the Red Sox offense did its job, Ryan Watson does that job well. So props to him on being not shut down by any fact of the matter or any way you slice it. But Ryan Watson continues to do his job. Check out the standings here in the American League. I had it up and now I don't, so we're going to find it. But the Red Sox, I know, second wild card. Not much changed over the weekend, but always good to check in after we've got a weekend set. So Tampa Bay with a sweep of the Guardians there, 62-43, kind of right back on their high horse, 6-4 in their last 10. They lead the American League. The White Sox, 55-49, lead the AL Central, and the Texas Rangers currently up 2-1 in a series against Seattle with the closer tonight on Monday. They're 53-52. They lead the AL West. The Yankees, 59-46, are the number one American League wild card. Sox, 4.5 games back of New York for the second wild card. They're 54-50. Cleveland's 54-53. They hold the third wild card. They're a game up on Minnesota, who's half a game up on Seattle, who's half a game up on Houston. Baltimore, 2.5 back. They're 51-55. Detroit, 50-56, just lost 2 to Kansas City. They kind of feel out of it. Toronto feels out of it. And of course, Kansas City, the Athletics, and the Angels round out the American League. Now we'll move on to the preview. Of course, we get some news, we get a series recap, and we get a preview. Big episode of the morning drive today. It was a long sheet to make, but we are here. So, it's the 54 and 53rd place Red Sox at Sacramento to face the Athletics, 44 and 61. They're fourth in the AL West. This is a series that you should sweep. We'll take a look at the probables tonight at 9:40 p.m. Peyton Tolley's 5-6 with a 3.31, facing the right-hander Jack Perkins, 2-5 and a 6.75. Jake Bennett 6-3, 2.58. Wow, that's a pretty stat line from Jake Bennett. Versus another top left-handed prospect, Gage Jump, 3-6, 4.42. He's been kind of stung by throwing in Sacramento, but also he simply hasn't been all that awesome. Oakland's pitching lab is pretty poor. On Wednesday, it is another 9:40 start. Patrick Sandoval 0-0 with a 3.21 versus the left-hander Jacob Lopez 5-4 with a 6.12. And on Thursday, another 9:40 start on a series finale. Kind of an interesting thought, but because the Sox are still out in California after that against the Dodgers, it doesn't really matter. Sonny Gray's 12-2 with a 2.78. He's dying to get that ball back. He will face Big Bad TBD on Thursday night. Some notes on the A's. This will be kind of quick because the A's aren't very good. 44 and 61, second to last in the American League. They were hot early. Injuries have kind of stung them. They're second to last in the AL, 2.5 games up on the Angels. Nick Kurtz activated off the IL Monday to be ready for this series. I believe it. I said Monday. I believe it was Sunday because I think he hit a home run yesterday. He's got 21 homers, 69 RBI. It was a big threat for the MVP before he got hurt. Could still be. Won't win it, obviously, with the A's season being as it is. And it's about to get worse because Shea Langoliers to the IL with a torn meniscus. He was probably the biggest catcher trade chip we had um, this deadline, this cycle. And he tears his meniscus. Tough blow for the A's because they could have gotten a big haul for one of the best catchers in the game, and they don't look like they're going to pay him. They hate paying players. They offered him like 80 million. Of course, he said no to that after a season like this. He's a Boris client, so they lose out on half a season of Langoliers or a big haul from their catcher. Jonah Heim will assume the catching duties for the A's. They're coming off a series loss against Minnesota. They lost their final two games, the Saturday and Sunday. Minnesota still hanging around, as I mentioned. They are just outside looking in the AL wildcard at a game back and a game under 500. Sox haven't seen them in a while. It was a bad series to them in May, and they have not seen the Twins since. The A's, it's kind of what I got. It's a series that, the 9:40 games get a lot of the casual fans. And of course, I have work early, so those would be tough games to stay up for. But Red Sox and A's coming up in the midweek, the second to last series before the trade deadline. All right. So, there is your series preview. And now, So I just got StreamYard Core, which is the. Why can't I? Oh, there we go. So just got StreamYard Core. Shout out to Skolfield Sports and the Reed Allen Foundation for making the podcast better. Straight up is what they're doing. We're gonna keep having these upgrades, and we'll be on Spotify and Apple. I believe that's this episode. So if you've made it 32 minutes into this podcast, go follow us on whatever podcast, um, you know, platform you listen to, because then you can actually take us on the morning drive. You can hit play on Spotify and not be distracted by my beautiful face on your YouTube screen. Again, thank you so much to Schofield Sports, Stan over there, a good friend of ours, and does great work. He's got athletes in the pros. Cody Bowker, I've been dying for an opportunity to talk about him. He's in the AA system for Philadelphia. He's a guy from Thornton Academy, went to Vanderbilt, and is now making an impact on an MLB organization. I won't say it's all because of Stan Schofield, because Cody's a super talented kid, but Schofield Sports has certainly helped him on his journey, and there are numerous others. So we'll get. I have this asset. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So, whoops, there we go. All right. So, now let's move on to the Schofield Sports Performance top performers. That this is the new segment that we're gonna go with Schofield Sports. That was a super terrible segue. We will get better at it, but because I now have Core, we've got this, the media asset right here and the ticker, and I'm trying to figure all that out. But the Schofield Sports Performance standout performers. We've got a couple hitters, couple pitchers, a pitching matchup. Munetaka Murakami off the IL right before the All-Star game. He's been good, 3 for 5, 6 RBI, and 2 homers. Chicago avoids the sweep at the hands of Houston at Minute Maid, whatever they call it. I still call it Minute Maid. That would have been a big sweep, because then you look at 54 and 50 for the White Sox. That's the same record as Boston, a team that is 6-4 in their last 10, but has gotten a lot of praise for being first in the AL Central. A sweep at the hands of a non-playoff team would have been difficult. Murakami, helps that effort with 6 RBI, and they salvaged that game on Sunday. CJ Abrams is on a heater of all heaters. It's 3 for 5, 3 RBI, and 2 home runs in a W against Arizona. CJ Abrams, I'm trying to find his in the last couple weeks. This last 37 plate appearance stretch, he's 18 for 37 with 7 home runs and 15 RBI. He's got 2 stolen bases as well. CJ Abrams was traded for Juan Soto along with James Wood. What a haul that was, because James Wood with 2 bombs yesterday too. Abrams is everything Washington's expected. Maybe the defense is a little subpar. They don't really care down there in Washington. Abrams with 2 bombs on Sunday. And then the pitching matchup, we've got Drew Rasmussen and Parker Messick. Rasmussen goes 7 shutty with 9 Ks. Messick outpaces him. He goes 7 2/3, gives up the 1 run that ends up losing Cleveland the game, because that's exactly how that matchup is supposed to go. He had 6 strikeouts. A tough outcome for Parker Messick, who throws a gem, and Drew Rasmussen has been great all season. He gets the W. Drew? Nope. It's Jacob Mizorowski, 5 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. He had a perfect game until Cole Carrig hits the home run in the 4th inning. 12 of his 15 outs were strikeouts. If that's not a standout, you can get lost. Jeremy Pena has been fake, quote unquote, on the trade block this summer. He's 2 for 4 with 2 bombs in that game against Chicago. I don't think he's actually I don't think he's going to be on the move. The Astros, 2 back of a wild card spot. We all know the Astros want to compete, and Pena gives them their best chance to do that. They also don't really trade guys away. Carlos Correa, they just let hit free agency. Kyle Tucker, did they deal? I don't remember them dealing him. I think that was a free agent signing to Chicago. Bregman, they let walk. They'd rather just compete and get the most out of that contract they can from the player, instead of dealing for prospects. Jeremy Pena is your final Skolfield Sports Performance standout performer of the day. We'll see who comes up tomorrow in the next few days. An update on 3 Up, 3 Down from the weekend. We'll look at what I kind of was monitoring over the weekend. The Yankees take the series in Philly. They lose the getaway day 11-4. Will Warren got shelled. I don't think Will Warren's that great a pitcher, to be completely honest with you. So, there's that. He gets shelled. New York wins the series in Philly against a good NL team. Seattle salvages the weekend by getting a 6-4 win yesterday. They've got a chance to just not up that 4-game set with Texas and leave everything at who cares for the 4-gamer tonight, because that was a big series. If that went either direction, the other team was sort of out of it. But it looks like it could be a tie. We'll check in on that tomorrow. And then Tampa Bay sweeps Cleveland. The Guardians, 1.5 back of the Sox for the second wildcard spot. Tampa Bay's kind of righted the ship a little bit after the mopping at Fenway last weekend. For the next 3 Up, 3 Down, we're going to monitor the Yankees at the White Sox. Like I said, White Sox lose the series in Houston. If they can, take 2 games against New York, it's a 4-game set, they'll still be in a good position for the AL Central. I always like watching the Cubs and Cardinals play. That's a good rivalry. So that'll be one of the 3 Up, 3 Down. And then another Texas and Tampa Bay. That series is at Tropicana. Basically, can Texas avoid getting swept in their first place bid going down the drain? Because Tampa Bay doesn't lose at the Trop. And then my 3 down is the NL West, basically, against inferior teams. Seattle visits the Dodgers. That's a big series. if you're a Red Sox fan, and I am, you kind of want to see what a team like that does against the Dodgers, what that Dodgers offense looks like going into the weekend series. But otherwise, don't really care. Milwaukee at San Francisco, oh my god, don't care. Then Colorado visits San Diego. I just don't really care to watch San Francisco or Colorado. So those are my three up, three down for this episode. We are 40 minutes in. This is easily the longest episode of the morning drive, but there was plenty to talk about. As I always say, please like, please subscribe, please drop a comment if I missed something or you want me to talk about it next episode. Um, we have two presenters. If you'd like to get in on the action, be my guest. Shoot me an email, thomaslikesbaseball@gmail.com, or I'm sure you have a way to get in contact with me. So come find me. Um, we'll be back for episode 9. I'm not going to promise an episode tomorrow, but for sure within the next 2 days, we'll get episode 9 up and out of the morning drive. I've been your host, Thomas Curtis. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in the next one.